Hello everyone. I'm 36 male. My ex-wife, Avery, 29, and I were married for only 3 years before everything went south for me, and she revealed her true colors. Avery and I dated for a year and 4 months before we got married. Soon after we started dating, I told Avery I was aspiring to set up my own business. So I labored day and night and did a part-time job besides my actual job. I used the money from my day job to pay for my rent, bills, and groceries while using money from my part-time job to push into my business. Avery worked at a retail store as a sales manager, and I thought she had a fair idea of how to run a business. At the beginning of our relationship, Avery was very supportive. She even pushed me to work harder to expand the business. But after we married, she didn't seem very interested in the business anymore. She would even jokingly tell me to focus on other things that were important if the business was not going the way I wanted. But I was adamant because it was my dream, and I knew it was possible to make it happen. Fast forward to the first year of marriage. After several meetings and much persuasion, I got a big break when one of my wealthy friends volunteered to invest in my business. Avery and I were over the moon celebrating our win. She pretended she believed in me and continuously pushed me to get things done. My business was a small logistics company, which I had been nursing this dream for a long time. I believed with proper management and funds, my logistics company would become one of the biggest companies in our state. With the funding, I purchased more delivery bikes, bicycles, and a truck for moving things. And with more bikes and bicycles added to what we already had, business boomed and our earnings increased. I also invested some money in marketing and signage, which paid off. However, I found a significant change in Avery's mindset soon after I got the investment. Before that money came in, Avery and I had no major reason to fight. Even if we argued about something or disagreed on something, we always settled it before we went to bed. But after the funding came, Avery and I fought most days, and the reason was money. She argued because she wanted me to give her some money for shopping, move us into a bigger apartment, and go for a week's vacation. All with the money that was meant to be invested in my business. When I kicked against the idea, she was mad. I understood the shopping aspect and even promised to give her money to buy a beautiful Chanel bag she had admired, but she wanted more. She claimed she was happy with the investment because she thought she would benefit from it. I was shocked at her demands because she knew how my business had been struggling and how hard I had worked and prayed for a financial miracle every day. And when it came, I wasn't expecting her to make such demands. Not at that time. Even if I were to take her shopping, move into a bigger apartment, or take her on vacation, it would have been from the profit I made from my business in the long run, rather than from the money I was supposed to invest and grow it. Countless times, I told her the money was not for our personal use. It was meant to be returned with interest to my investor friend. But everything I said fell in deaf ears, and she wouldn't stop nagging about it. She started calling me selfish and said I was trying to take all the money my friend gave me for myself even when I didn't work for it. When her words did not get to me as she expected, she switched to the emotional aspect and would cry all night. For that whole week, we argued, and when I couldn't take it anymore, I agreed to take her shopping on a budget for peace to reign. Then, I invested the rest of the money in my business. I did that for Avery because I loved her, even when she was insensitive. As I mentioned earlier, with the addition of bikes and bicycles for delivery, business boomed, and we could cover more areas than we did in the past. It even reached the point where I had to resign from my main and side jobs to focus more on my business. I did everything possible to make sure it moved to the next level, and the money I earned monthly was enough to pay my share of the rent and bills and use whatever was left to pay for the loans I owed. About 2 months after my business started improving, Avery stopped contributing to the house. She claimed I was now doing well financially and I could cater for the house like a man. And she said she was tired of splitting 50-50 with me when I earned more than double her monthly salary. Initially, when she mentioned it, I thought it was a joke, but when she refused to contribute to rent or other bills that month, I realized she wasn't joking. I tried to explain to her that it was not wise for me to take up the whole financial burden of the house because it would pull me backward instead of moving forward, but she refused to listen. Besides, I had to return the investment money to my friend in two with a filthy interest. She told me she had friends whose husbands were not earning as much as I did, but they cared for their wives, kids, and family independently, so why couldn't I do the same thing? This question was a slap on my face, but I didn't let it get to me. At that point, I was tired of constantly arguing with Avery. It was almost like she changed as soon as the money came. And with my business barely flourishing like I would have wanted, I started paying all the bills at home. I single-handedly paid for rent, for all the bills, bought groceries, and paid for gas every month. I'd be lying if I said doing all of that did not affect my business, because it did. I hated that Avery kept acting like the business was mine alone. My primary reason for opening a business was that I didn't want to be doing a 9-to-5 with overtime for the rest of my life. And I didn't want that for Avery. Everything I did was so we could have a good life and possibly give our children the kind of lives we never had. But the more Avery came up with her demands and expectations, the more I felt that she was not interested in my business in any way. I married her because I believed she had a flair for business and we were on the same stage. She used to tell me how she would love us to own multiple businesses together across the country and even around the world. But when the time came for us to grow the only business we had together, she changed into a totally different person. She stopped contributing to the house and preferred to use the money she earned to shop for clothes, shoes, wigs, and whatever she wanted, while I took care of the bills. For another year and some months, I tolerated her and tried to grow my business. Sometimes, she would take my credit card for shopping with her girlfriends and max it out. So you can imagine what I was going through financially. It was more of a 1 step forward and 3 steps backward for my business, and for a few months, it continued like that. Unfortunately, I couldn't continue because I had to pay back the money with interest, and I ran into serious debt issues and had to fold up for a while. It became so bad that I had to sell all my bikes, my personal car, and family jewelry and heirloom to settle the debt, and at the end of it, I was left with nothing, not even a penny saved. When this happened, I went through hell in Avery's hands. When I folded up my business, she began to say terrible things to me. She said something about how we would have used the money from the funding to live good lives, but because of my greediness, I lost everything. As if her bad mouths and verbal lashings were not enough, she changed completely. Earlier, we used to split the household chores, but while my business tanked, she told me to do my laundry, cook my own meals, and clean the house since I was home, apparently jobless. She literally used every opportunity she had to rub it in my face that she was making money while I was unemployed without a business. I was aggressively applying for jobs so that I could cover my expenses. After suffering such a huge loss, business was the last thing in my head. Survival was first. Around that time, I noticed she was always smiling and typing on her phone. Then she came home with expensive gifts like bags, jewelry, shoes, and clothes. I knew she could not afford them because her salary could not buy even one bag, and she would have to save her salary for at least 4 months to get one of those expensive bags. As soon as I noticed her new pattern of coming home late with expensive things every week, I questioned her about it, and each time I did, she would abuse me and remind me that I didn't have the right to question her because I was jobless and would never be able to buy those things for her. With her new attitude, I knew we wouldn't get intimate, and that's what happened. She stopped sleeping in the bedroom because she knew I would try to touch her, and just like that, our marriage became a nightmare in a twinkle of an eye. I think 2 or 3 months after she started coming home with expensive stuff, it was hurtful and suffocating for me to tolerate her tantrums. But at that point, my priority was getting a job ASAP. However, one evening she came home and told me she wanted a divorce. She said she could no longer tolerate being married to me, and she revealed that she married me because she thought I had a promising future, but so far, she wasn't impressed. I didn't try to beg or convince her. I kind of knew that it was coming. I was already tired of everything and believed divorcing each other was the right thing to do. Even though I loved her, I could not live or remain married to a woman who mocked me, insulted me, and made me feel worthless at the slightest opportunity she had, so I signed the papers. She moved out of the house before our divorce was finalized. Shortly after we divorced, I was at home thinking about my life when she sent a message on Facebook. When I opened it, it was a picture of her in a bikini on a yacht with my rich friend. He was the same rich friend that funded my business, and I couldn't have felt more betrayed. At that point, everything made sense. The expensive gifts, perfumes, her returning home late, the new attitude, and finally, wanting a divorce. I couldn't even cry because what she had done passed the stage of expressing my heartbreak and tears. I even felt bad for her because my rich friend had a track record of using women, and he was divorced 4 times. In response to the picture she sent to mock me, I typed, "Enjoy while it still lasts," and then blocked her. Moving on was difficult, especially with no job and someone to support me financially and emotionally. It was so rough, and there were days I thought of ending things because I was mentally in a very dark place. I even moved in with my younger brother because I could not afford to pay rent or take care of my basic needs. Some of my friends tried to support and helped me occasionally. 4 months after Avery left me, I got a job. The pay was not that great compared to my previous job, but it was a motivating start for me. I worked really hard, did overtime, and I was able to split rent and bills with my brother for 2 months before I got my place. At my new workplace, this senior colleague of mine was particularly fond of me. Her name was Crystal, 47. She was obviously older, and I didn't understand why she would bring me lunch, ask if we could go out and eat together, and so on until I asked her. Crystal said I reminded her of her late brother who passed away when he was younger, and for some weird reason, I looked and walked like him. Down the line, Crystal and I became so close, and when I told her about my past and the business that crashed, she promised to help. In the few months of knowing each other, I had already fallen in love with her. She cared for me and treated me with so much love. I didn't even get that kind of care and love in the 3 years I married Avery. With Crystal, I felt pampered, and I didn't even know when my heart gave way to love again. Surprisingly, help came. Crystal helped me as promised, and I got funding from someone she introduced me to. The person helped because she owed Crystal a favor. On her end, Crystal also gave me a mind-blowing amount of money to invest, with the agreement that I would pay her back monthly. She also shared ideas to push my business forward, expand, and offer something my competitors didn't. I know it all sounds too good to be true, and that's exactly how I felt in the space of 9 months after Avery left me. In fact, if anyone had told me I would bounce back so fast, I would not have believed it. My only disappointment was that Crystal did not see me the way I saw her. She saw me as her brother whom she loved so much, and she promised to keep supporting me as far as I kept to my end of the deal. She was almost 11 years older than me, and I would not have minded. When Crystal said no to me because she didn't want to mix business with pleasure, I was hurt of it, but I got over it and decided to focus on growing back my business. Even though it was almost like starting from scratch because I sold my bikes, I didn't mind. Having a logistics business was something I really wanted, and I was passionate about it. With determination and the funds provided, my business kicked back to life and I was so happy. Just 3 weeks ago, a year after Avery and I divorced, I received a call from Avery. She said she wanted to see me. I thought she must have heard about my new success and wanted to see things for herself, so I agreed to see her. I invited her to my company's location so she could see things for herself. I did this to rub it in her face. When she came, she looked so lean and didn't give the vibes of a rich man's wife. Deep down, I wanted to ask if everything was okay, but I didn't. My sole purpose was to show her I was doing well, even better than the last time, and I'm sure she got the message. Now that isn't the problem. The problem is that she called me again yesterday and asked if I could take her back because she was going through so much at the hands of her new husband. Now for the first update. Thank you everyone for your comments. I'll answer some of the common questions asked in my original post. First, no, I don't have any intentions of taking her back. I only posted this here to get your opinions, which I have. Some of you asked if I knew Avery well enough before marrying her. The thing is, I believed I knew her. And while we dated, she never showed any of those attitudes. She never spoke rudely to me or mocked my business. When I said it was like the Avery I dated and the Avery I married were 2 different people, I wasn't bluffing. As someone has advised, I will be discarding her immediately because my business is now more important than anything else, and I cannot afford to make the same mistake twice. Meanwhile, I met with her 2 days ago. This time, her whole face was covered in bruises. She told me she regretted divorcing me because even when I had little money, I was good to her and treated her like a queen, and she was sorry for leaving me. She said she wanted to leave her new husband because he was physically assaulting her and she couldn't even sue him because he was filthy rich. She also feared what would become of her if he cut off everything she benefited from him. In addition to that, she admitted that she was jobless, and he didn't let her work because he provided everything she wanted, and it was choking her. She complained bitterly of his infidelity and how he would bring home different girls daily without minding her presence. From everything she said, I don't know how much of it was all true. All I can confirm is what I had seen on her body. I was sure she was physically, mentally, and emotionally in a bad place. On top of that, she looked sleep-deprived, and in our 1 year plus of dating and 3 years of marriage, I had never seen her look that terrible. As she talked, I couldn't help but notice how impeccable her timing was. It was evident that her abuse did not just start when my business came back to life. She must have been abused from her first month of being married to him. Yet she never called or complained about it until the news of my business reached her. So I decided to play with her as someone here had advised. I gave her all the reasons I could not take her back and watched her beg and plead with me. She said she was deceived by what she saw and believed it was better to be a rich man's wife, even if he didn't love her, than to be a poor man's wife with all the love. But now she had learned her lesson. When she had begged and begged, I told her to give me time to think about it, and hearing that gave her a ray of hope. I can't wait to kill her hope and make her go through the same pain I did. I'll make another update as soon as I take my revenge. Now for the second update. Hi everyone. Trust me, this is not ending as a love story because the story is already over. Believe me, I still cannot get over her betrayal. And no matter how hard I tried, I could not get the image of her face when she humiliated and abused me during my tough phase. It's pretty shameful that she tried to return to me after treating me like I'm worthless. Anyways, it's been a month now. I cannot begin to list everything she had done for me so that I could take her back. She went as far as sharing her nudes at my request, and we had been consistently chatting from the day I told her I would think about it. It was almost like she delivered herself to me on a silver platter. All I needed was 1 month. She made it so easy throughout that month. She did literally everything I asked her to do. To even blow her mind and lead her on. I kissed her on the cheek, and she couldn't stop smiling and waving at me as she walked to her car that day. Someone here had commented that I set her up and ruined her miserable marriage, and I loved that idea. I deliberately asked her to send her nudes to me because I knew she would. After all, desperate times require desperate measures. So, after I had enough of her explicit photos, I gathered chats between us as we discussed how she would divorce her husband and all the horrible things she had said about him. I unblocked my friend and sent him all those pictures and screenshots of our conversations. Then I left a message, helping you dodge a bullet, bro. I waited for him to see the message, and as soon as he did, I got a call from Avery. She was crying and breathing heavily on the phone, and when she could finally talk, she told me her husband threw her out of the house and seized everything he bought for her, because in his words, she came with nothing, so she had to go with nothing. After crying and composing herself, she said she was coming to my place to officially be together like we had planned. I used that opportunity to tell her I was the one who sent everything to her husband, and we could never be together because she didn't deserve any love. When she heard that, she cried more and begged me not to do that to her. I already did. I warned her not to show up at my place or company, or I would have her arrested. And after that, I blocked her contact, and I can only imagine the heartbreak she is going through right now. Very bold of her to think she could eat her cake and have it. I can't appreciate you all enough. Thank you so much for your advice and suggestions. I would not have paid her back so satisfyingly if you all didn't help me. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Until next time, I'll see you again. Take care.